Welcome back to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike Muncer. As ever, I am your host. In this podcast, we explore and dissect the history and the evolution of the horror genre, one subgenre at a time. We are currently in the middle of our 10th season, exploring the evolution of nature biting back in horror, and this is part 12. In this week's episode, it's going to be a very fun 70s animal attack extravaganza. We are not going to be talking about anything in detail this week. We are just going to be listing a whole bunch of 70s and a few 80s animal attack movies, spoiler free. So get ready to note down all of these titles and check out any of the ones that sound appealing. Joining me for this discussion, she is not only a very good friend of this podcast, she is also my co-host of the Twin Peaks podcast, The Detective and the Log Lady, and she just happens to be a pretty big fan of this particular era, of this particular type of horror movie. It is my great pleasure to welcome back to the podcast, Stacie Ponder. Hello, Stacie.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Stacie. How are you doing, Stacie? How is for people who haven't been listening to us on other podcasts, how has your 2024 been so far?
Oh, God, one of the greatest years on record. Right?
Things can only get better, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. That better's one word for it, I guess. Yeah, the way things could go.
Oh my God. But not to insert a plug into our other podcast straight away, Stacie, but you have been busy watching Twin Peaks for the first time in 2024, so it can't be all bad, right?
Yeah, so it actually is one of the better years, honestly, because I have
at least
finally,
in the last handful of years, you know.
Yeah. At least I've finally gotten around to, catching up with everybody else where they were decades ago. I'm finally a part of that conversation. So
exciting. We're watching it. So for people who don't know, we've got another podcast called The Detective and the Log Lady. We're watching Twin Peaks together. Stacie is watching it for the very first time. It's very exciting. We're about to, at the point we're recording this, we're about to get to the end of season 1. And it is juicy right now, Stacie, isn't it? Oh my God.
So good. It's so good. It keeps getting better. Like, I know it was a fear of mine before we started that show that, like, what if I don't really like it?
Right.
But, I figured I would enjoy it, but I didn't know that I would love it. Although,
so glad.
The reason we're even doing it is because you love it so much. So
Yeah, exactly. But it is a worry. It is, like with David Lynch. David Lynch is an acquired taste, right? And I don't. Yeah. It's not one of those things where I'm like, I couldn't imagine anybody not liking it. Like, I could totally see why some people wouldn't get on board with Twin Peaks, right? So it was a relief that you do love it. It's like otherwise this could have been a very long year of podcasting together.
Yeah. But I really do love it. Like the watching it and talking about it is like definitely a highlight of the week every week now. Like,
me too. I love it. And actually, I think just getting to watch one episode a week rather than binging is actually the best way to do it, I think. Like, at times excruciating because they've got some amazing cliffhangers, but I think it's the best way to watch it,
Yeah, just really soaking it like a big tub of water.
Like a big pond of frogs and snakes, just sinking your way into it.
Like I'm just in a swamp covered in leeches.
Yeah. Oh, my God. So, speaking of, let me ask you, this series of EOH, we're talking about animal attack movies, eco-horror movies, natural horror movies, all of that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on this subgenre, Stacie? Are you a fan of these kinds of movies?
Oh my God. Fan is just not strong enough of a word. Like, these movies, when you pitched this to me and it was like, okay, like, do you want to do these 70s animal attacks movies? Like, great. And I said, here's my recommendations of some movies that I love.
Yeah.
And then you said, like, let's just do all of them.
All of them.
So many movies
Yeah.
Which, in hindsight, is a little bonkers.
Poor Stacey's had to rewatch or watch all of these movies over the last few days, basically, haven't you? Thank you for taking one for the team there. I appreciate it.
But you know what? It's honestly the best one I've ever taken for the team, because these movies, I don't know how someone can do it. I am not a crafts person, so this is not for me to decide. But when I die, I just want to be buried in a coffin made out of these movies. They're so good. Like, this is just heaven to me. There are a few... I realize, as we talk about these movies, because it is so many, I apologize in advance because I am going to be saying a lot of words that are the same for each movie. You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I think it was good to just group them all in. Like, I could have spent, 10 to 12 weeks on these movies, but I feel like they might be a lot of the same conversations, So I think it's a nice way is to just, recommend a whole bunch of them, wrap them all up into one big bumper episode almost, because there are a lot of kind of similarities, I would say, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. You're going to hear me say things like, great cast.
Right.
And,
Yeah, incredible cast.
But I just, some of these movies, some specific scenes in some of these movies, and I'm saying this without a shred of irony, they just make me happy to be alive. And, getting to watch some of these things that happen is just gives me such unbridled joy.
I love it. I'm so excited. And let me just ask you briefly, just more broadly about this kind of subgenre, because we're going to focus in particularly on the kind of 70s ones. But it feels like, I guess ever since Jaws, this has been a really popular subgenre, right? Even today, there's 3 new shark movies out this month. There have been new spider movies out this year. What is it about this type of movie, do you think, that is so kind of enduringly popular for horror fans, do you think?
I think it's maybe just the chaos and the carnage of them that just, there's something really delightful. I was thinking about it that I'm watching Jason Voorhees slaughter a bunch of people is one thing. And sometimes, honestly, as much as I love Friday the 13th in particular, or slasher movies, sometimes it can be unpleasant.
Yes.
To watch a person get cut up or whatever. However, if the person is set on fire by cockroaches that fart fire, I live. I'm burn everybody up. I want to watch it. So I think there's something so ludicrous about it, and maybe because it's so removed from real life. People die in shark attacks or by snake bite or whatever, but you're probably not going to get eaten by a 150-pound rabbit.
Right. Yeah. I think that is part of it for sure, is that there is there's a ridiculousness about them, right? But even aside from that, I wonder if it's also that thing of like you said, we're not really, and I know that in the Friday the 13th sequels, people do start to root for Jason, but we're not really supposed to be rooting for the slasher killer to cut up the, young girls or whatever. Whereas I think with a lot of these movies, you kind of think, well, these animals are just doing what they're doing, right? And a lot of the time, the characters really deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It's how can you not root for these animals? It's generally in these movies, sure, you have your Jaws, which is oh, there's a big shark and it eats people. But then a lot of these films are a response to the ways that humankind was fucking up the environment.
Right.
And they state it right in the movies that, oh, this is, all the animals are flipping out because we're all using too much hairspray.
Yeah.
And ruining the ozone layer.
Yes.
So it's kind of we deserve it. They're a response to Manifest Destiny or something where, man is the top of the food chain, etc. And nature says, hold on, let's pump the brakes for a second, okay?
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think that's true. Do you think that's the reason for this sudden surge of them? Like, why was there this sudden wave of them in the 1970s? Was it just that the world was sort of catching on to this becoming a real danger? Like, was it more in the zeitgeist, this idea of, like, what are we doing to the planet? Because it just seems like there was such a boom of them in this particular decade, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think it was kind of the first time we were really becoming aware of the effects that mankind has on the environment. You know,
Yes.
It's like the 70s are when the EPA was born.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we've been talking about climate change and all of these things for half a century now.
Oh, my God.
So the idea that people are still denying it completely and all this just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Because this has been the conversation, and we have movies like Day of the Animals to tell you all about it.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And I think you're right. I think it's like this perfect storm of that started to become more of a thing in the zeitgeist, this idea of people becoming more aware of climate change. But also, obviously, you had the popularity of Jaws in 1975. I'm sure that must have made a difference, right?
Oh,
but even earlier than that, you had, I guess, films like Willard, and it just feels like there were a lot more of these types of things and stories coming about in the early 70s too.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, you know, horror, Hollywood, whatever, does love a trend more than anything.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, once one person makes it, there's going to be all the knockoffs. You know, you have all your Exorcist knockoffs of every variety.
Yeah.
And so some of these movies were a direct response to Jaws in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can see that when we go through our list, particularly in the kind of, like, 1977 was a real big year for this type of movie. Like, the late 70s post Jaws, there was a real glut of these kind of movies, wasn't there, I think? So it's got to be because of the popularity of Jaws, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's just heaven. Like, it's like, what is my idea of heaven? It is these movies we're going to talk about today.
Oh,
like, they're just so good.
I love it. I'm so glad. Are you, in your real life, Stacie, are you an animal lover? Are you a very outdoorsy person? Are you very much like at one with nature, would you say?
Well, I think that's a bit far. I'm a little more at one with my television kind of a girl.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, but I am like, I love camping. I love, you know, a hike through the woods, all of that. I'm not like, no one's going to put me on the cover of Outside magazine for sure. But I do love it. I am an animal lover to the point where it's like, I don't like bugs, so if there's like an ant in my sink, I'll just kind of like wash it down the sink, but then I'll feel really bad and I'll cry about it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I don't know.
Yeah, but you're not like, do you have any phobias? Are you like scared of spiders or anything like that?
Well, I don't want any of them on me. You know,
right.
I can't.
Agreed.
That's for sure. But I think the only thing that qualifies, which I only saw one shot of them in all the movies, but I'm not a big fan of scorpions.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that might owe to seeing Clash of the Titans as a child with those giant scorpions from Ray Harryhausen.
Yes.
But they give me the creeps. But spiders, they don't bother me. Snakes, whatever.
I didn't like that. I was saying this on last week's episode, but like when I went to Death Valley for the first time this year, and the ranch that we stayed at had these signs in the hotel rooms just saying, "Don't stick your hands or feet into anything that you haven't checked beforehand," basically, because of scorpions. And I was like, I don't want to stay in a place that has signs like that in the rooms.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, when I went out west for the first time, that blew me away. I was like getting off at a truck stop to get gas or whatever, and there'd be a sign that's like, "Scorpions and rattlesnakes here." Oh. Like that it's so trippy, yeah. So I have a healthy fear of nature.
Yeah.
And a healthy respect for it, but...
Absolutely.
But I don't want anything on me. I don't like things that fly. And also, I would like to say that don't stick things in things without knowing about that thing. I think that's good advice in general.
That's a good point. It's a good
for
point.
For all of us.
Advice for life. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, I'm with you though. I love all animals, and I'm very happy to just leave animals alone and have them leave me alone. You know, like I am. If I go swimming in the ocean, I've got nobody but myself to blame if I get stung by a jellyfish or bitten by a shark, right? I'm just like, well, I'll just leave them be. That's their space. This is my space, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, how dare I? That's the thing. I don't subscribe to that, like, well, I'm man and top of the food chain. It's like, it's only because we have opposable thumbs that we feel we can brag so much.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly.
Otherwise, just leave people alone. Like, when I lived in Los Angeles, there was I had never seen black widow spiders before. Mm-hmm. Oh, and God. There was one on a web in the corner of my office.
What?
And I was like... I told a friend, like, we have an understanding, this spider and I leave her alone, she leaves me alone. And my friend is like, you need to get rid of it. But I said, you know what? We're going to coexist.
Oh, my God.
It's good.
Oh, my God. We've been talking over the last few weeks about Australian kind of exploitation movies of the 70s, right? And how terrifying a lot of those films are. But most of the movies we're going to talk about this week are American movies, right? And I just wondered, like, is there anything... Do you find there's anything particularly, like, American about these movies? Like, they're all set, aren't they, in places like Texas and Arizona and that kind of thing. And, yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting that I guess this is the case with almost all types of films, is that the majority of them come out of America. But, I just wondered, like, do you think there's anything particularly American about these types of movies?
They're very American West, for the most part. Yeah. You know, and I think that's because just once you get out there... things get weird, you know? Like, I don't think we're gonna have, like, a Night of the Lepus problem ever. But if you told me that it really did happen in, like, Arizona or New Mexico, I'd be like, well, that kind of tracks, though. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It's just there's so much space out there and so many weird things, and the desert will drive you crazy. You know, so why not drive the animals crazy too?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, these you mentioned already, these movies are such an interesting mix, right? Like the ones we're going to talk about, it's this weird mix of like B movies with A-list stars, right? Like what is going on here? Why did this happen? Why were we getting movies with giant bugs that were like starring like Janet Leigh and William Shatner and all these other amazing people we're going to talk about? Like, how did this happen?
Well, I mean, this is the thing too, is, you know, never underestimate someone who wants to just like show up for a day's work and get paid. You know? Yeah. Most actors will do pretty much anything. It's why you can look at the worst, most low budget horror movie, even stuff released today, and be like, why is, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis in that? And it's like, well, why is he in Curse of Bloody Mary 5? It's like, well, he showed up for 15 minutes and got paid, you know? And so a lot of these actors are storied character actors or big actors who were a little bit past what could be considered their prime. Right. Somebody like Ray Milland.
Yeah.
We'll get to him when we talk about Frogs, but it's like this man won an Oscar.
Yes.
And then in Frogs, he has a completely undignified death where he's like face down and there's frogs crawling all over his ass. It's like...
yeah.
You know, that's Hollywood, baby.
It's I know. That's the thing. It's like these movies are so... they're not even what I would call, like, prestigious genre films, right? They're ridiculous movies. They are ridiculous as well. It's so... And there is something so joyous about seeing people like, Ray Milland, Olivia de Havilland, you know, whoever in these types of movies. You know?
Well, especially when you have somebody like... You know, we did Lady in a Cage on this show.
Oh, my God.
At which point I mentioned Olivia de Havilland is like one of my absolute favorite actresses of all time. And it's like somebody like that, or you look at the sort of Grand Dame Guignol films, where you have these esteemed actors. When they do show up, even if it is the swarm, she's going to do her job and she's going to do it well. Like, they might be showing up for a paycheck, but they don't give a performance that says I'm showing up for my paycheck. They treat it like they treat anything else.
That's so true.
So
yeah, it's so true. There's some of them absolutely giving it they're all in these movies. It's so good.
Yeah.
And do you think as well, like speaking of the big cast and movies like The Swarm, do you think we've spoken about a few trends that were going on at the time? Do you think also that kind of disaster movie trend kind of fed into this too? These movies like Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure, Airport 70, all those kind of movies. Like, do you think that also has kind of fed into these movies getting made in the 70s?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there is like The Swarm is a direct crossover with Irwin Allen.
Right.
So
yeah.
But they kind of, a lot of them, most of the animal attack movies of this era follow the same kind of they have a lot in common in terms of like a sizable cast with some recognizable names, and they're all put in this crazy situation that's, disastrous. Some of them are smaller scale.
Yeah.
But most of them do kind of go for broke and have a lot of people in a really terrible situation.
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's all been downhill ever since, right? Like, we had disaster movies and these, and it's just like, what are we doing now?
There was a wave, and I'm going to get to this in a few weeks' time, but there was a wave of kind of trying to bring these types of movies back in the 90s, wasn't there? I think we had stuff like we had like disaster movies like Volcano, and then we had things like Deep Rising and Deep Blue Sea and Lake Placid and Twister, and there was like they attempted, I think, didn't they, to kind of bring back that wave in the 90s, but we've not really had anything like that since,
No, and I don't think we will. I mean, like, and the Sci-Fi Channel really kind of leaned into the sort of, once Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus came out,
that was it.
That was it. That opened the floodgate for all of the, like, Crocosaur versus whatever face. Yeah, like, it's just, But I think the problem is that even with the 90s stuff and now, I think technological advances make the movies less fun than they used to be.
Yeah.
Whether it's bad CGI, nobody enjoys bad CGI. Like, we're all just kind of embarrassed by bad CGI. Good CGI, it's just not fun because they can do anything and make it look kind of real.
Yeah.
Whereas I would rather watch a dachshund dressed up as a rat.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, now they would just be a giant computer rat, and that's nowhere near as much fun and enjoyable.
Agreed. I think that is also part of the charm of these 70s ones, isn't it? Of seeing how they, and we'll talk about these different ways they do it, but the different ways in which they bring these animals to the screen, whether they're filming real ants, or whether they have got like you say, dogs and small dogs dressed as giant rats, or they've got whatever animatronics or puppetry or whatever. Like, it is really fun to see the different ways these filmmakers have to put these things on screen. Yeah
Oh yeah, that's always a treat to see the different ways they approach it. And, like, the different tricks they do. And you always see the tricks. Like, you're never fooled, ever.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so wonderful to see all the different methods and the ways they try to trick us.
So let's do it. We're going to run through a little list of these movies. Now, I have not seen all of them. Stacie has, thank goodness. But we'll just talk a little bit about each of them, and kind of what they bring to the table and what Stacie thinks of them as we go as well. I can't wait. So we've put this list into chronological order. So we're going to start in 1972 with frogs.
Suppose nature gave a war and everybody came. The snakes, the birds, the lizards and frogs. And suppose that the polluters, the species on Earth called man, were the enemy in that war.
I still believe man is master of the world.
And then suppose that the human race lost.
What a movie. Frogs, directed by George McCowan. It's starring Sam Elliott, Ray Milland, Lynn Borden, Joan Van Ark, a bunch of other people. The story, simply put, right? We've got a group of hapless victims celebrating a birthday on a posh island estate that happens to be crawling with killer. And it's not just frogs. In fact, it's not really frogs, right? It's like kind of various different kind of birds, insects, snakes, reptiles, amphibians, all kinds of things. killing people one by one in this big kind of estate and swamp. Stacie, what do you think of frogs?
Frogs may be my favorite of these.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. It's like you're going to hear me say it's so good so many times today. I'm sorry. I know I'm a writer, but like there's only so many words in the English language.
Exactly. Yeah.
But frogs is really interesting because the frogs don't kill anybody. They don't even kill anybody by accident. Yes, there are a lot of them, but...
And also, I love it that all the shots of the frogs, they're not really doing anything, but they do look sinister. They do look angry.
Yeah. They're kind of... this last time watching it for this, I see them as sort of the harbingers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because everybody else does all the work.
They're kind of like the Annabelle of these movies.
They just sit there looking fabulous. I love it. I love it when some of the frogs, when they're like stacked up. When there's like frogs sitting on frogs.
So good. So
yeah,
good.
but this movie takes the approach for the most part of like something bad happens and there happens to be an animal nearby.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's it'll just somebody trips and falls and then they pan over and there's a gecko nearby hanging out.
Oh, and it's so good. And it very much wears its themes on its sleeve, right? You've got these pretty awful rich, I mean, it's a kind of like early example of a kind of eat the rich horror movie as well, right? And with this kind of eco message, but these quite kind of monstrous rich characters kind of getting their just desserts in a way, right, as well. It's so fun.
Right. Well, they're polluting, you know, and it's still very true. They don't want to, you know, put any, you know, environmentally sound sort of machinery on their paper mill because it's going to cost them money and... You know, it's always the corporations that are doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. And you know what, as well? Like, this movie actually has some quite effective moments with animals attacking. Like, they look, for the most part, like a lot of the time they're just using actual live animals, like snakes and things that are just crawling around. And there is something a little bit kind of that makes me a bit squirmy watching this movie as well. As silly as it is, I think it's quite effective.
I love that. I just think they're all so cute because they look like they're smiling all the time. But there's a sequence in a greenhouse where like I don't know what they are, Gila monsters or something, like knock over a bunch of bottles of poison to like kill somebody. I don't know how that doesn't also kill the Gila monsters. Like they aerosolize this poison, but they're fine. But it gives them a little more motivation, I guess.
Yes, exactly that.
That they're actually kind of weaponizing things against us is pretty great.
So good. So good. I'm sure many people will have seen the iconic moment of the woman like sinking down into the swamp when she gets attacked. So it's such a good moment.
Oh my God. Yeah, I posted that on Instagram if anybody follows me while I was watching it for this, of Aunt Iris who goes off looking for butterflies and ends up running a swampland death gauntlet where it's like she runs afoul of some Spanish moss, you know, next thing you know, she's falling and she has leeches all over her, and then she sees a snake and she screams, and then the snake bites her. It's just like, it just keeps going. This woman really goes through it, and it's again, you're just happy to be alive and watching it.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I loved it. And you got a young Sam Elliott without a moustache as well, which is very unnerving.
I know. I don't know if I prefer him with or without. I mean, he's a babe either way, but, you know.
Oh, absolutely. What a hunk.
What a hunk.
And again, like, this movie has this real kind of, like, I don't know, like, sweaty, almost kind of like sweaty deep south kind of vibe to it. Like, it's swampy, isn't it, and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Muggy. That's the word. It's all muggy. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, but him and Joan Van Ark of television's Knots Landing. I didn't know she was a young babe at one point either, but
there you go.
You know.
There you go.
The fashions in Frogs are incredible. Great fashions. I will say, it's like Frogs, as silly as the movie is, the racial politics in Frogs, I think, are actually pretty incredible.
Yes, yeah.
The way it's approached, that one of the rich assholes brings home his girlfriend who's black. And she has some really wonderful moments with the black staff of the house, of this like swamp plantation.
Yeah.
And it's just really a mature approach to it, that there's a real solidarity among the black characters that it kind of blows me away.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that's the stuff about it that I was kind of really impressed with. Like you said, like we said, it does almost feel like it's not just doing the kind of silly B movie animal thing. There is this kind of like, there's this kind of almost class kind of commentary, like I said, this kind of eat the rich vibe about it as well, that kind of feels very ahead of its time. Yeah.
It's really kind of sensitively handled, I guess, and it's not so obvious either. It's like the way the characters speak to each other, and it's not just like, how did you brought a black person to my house? It's not like that obvious and on the surface. It's just like the disdain that they feel for her. It's just, I don't know. It's like Frogs rules. Frogs ruls.
Oh, it rules. It rules. It rules. If anyone hasn't seen it, absolutely check it out. It is like, I think it's one of our, by the sounds of it, for both of us, it's one of our favourites on this list, right? Absolutely
Definitely.
worth a watch.
If I had like 5 of these movies to recommend, it would be number 1.
Right.
I think.
There we go. All right, we're going to move on to another masterpiece, Stacie. From 1972, Night of the Lepus.
What happened that night science made its greatest mistake? What unknown terror was born that night?
Directed by William F. Claxton, this is based on The Year of the Angry Rabbit by Russell Braddon. Giant mutant rabbits terrorise the Southwest, starring Janet Leigh, Stuart Whitman, Rory Calhoun, and a bunch of other people. Who came up with this idea? What a bonkers idea, right? Giant, cute bunny rabbits killing people, basically.
So
what do you think of this movie?
I mean, I don't think it's successful in instilling any kind of fear in the audience. Like, all I can think throughout it is how much I would love to see a giant-sized rabbit. I just would love it. Even if it was the last thing I saw, because for some reason the rabbits are now carnivorous, I would still enjoy it. I would say if I died from getting bitten to death by a 150-pound rabbit, I would want you to tell everybody.
Yeah.
That's just it.
That would be the way I would go. You know, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a rabbit owner. We've got 2 adorable rabbits in our garden called Apollo and Starbuck. Yeah. We are Battlestar Galactica nerds in this house. And they are unbelievably big. Like they're bigger. Like, I don't think we realized when we bought them and they were like just born how big they would grow, but they're bigger than half the cats in our neighborhood, which is hilarious. So there is a bit of me that thinks I think they could eat me, these 2. Right. But you know, that's fine. I'm happy. What if I'm gonna go in any way, I'll go that way. That's fine.
And these rabbits, first of all, they roar also, which I love.
Yeah.
But this film, William F. Claxton takes the approach that if we just show them in slow motion, everybody will think they're really big. Like, that's the way he approached the, like, how do you film a 150-pound rabbit?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. I think that's probably the biggest problem with this movie, is that the scale of the rabbits never really comes across that well.
No.
And even 150 pounds, like, there are dogs that weigh more than that. So 150 pounds is big for a rabbit, but it's not that big. Like, they're not the size of a school bus.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. And I actually find it quite difficult to gauge what size they are throughout the movie. At some point, I was like, are they supposed to be the size of a school bus? Are they the size of a kind of large dog? Like, it's really hard to tell because, like you say, the scale is kind of all over the place in this film.
Yeah. He's not very good at putting them in a place where you can figure out how big they are in relation to humans. Like that never happens. Like we get like one shot or two shots of a big paw coming in.
Oh,
which I
adorable
love.
paw. It's so cute.
Yeah. But we don't see people standing next to the rabbits or see people really in the same shot as a group of rabbits. And so it just never really tracks. And so I think that's the biggest problem. But there is a lot of blood. There's a lot of gore.
Oh my God. I mean, it's so funny. The gore as well. Like, they used all these different techniques to depict the rabbit attacks. And yeah, a lot of it, like you say, was basically filming rabbits in close up in front of miniatures in slow motion. I think that's like the most part what they do. But sometimes, and also they used real rabbits and they smeared ketchup on their faces to make it look like blood. These poor bunnies. And then other times, apparently there are certain shots where they've got human actors in rabbit costumes. As well. Just incredible.
Oh God. But they show like some of the victims and maybe they'll be scratched on their face or whatever, but sometimes you'll see the whole body. And again, it's kind of like, what are the rabbits doing? Because the dead bodies just look like the poster for Anatomy of a Murder.
Yes.
They've just kind of severed all the limbs, but the body is still just there like a jigsaw puzzle. So they're not really eating us down to the bone or anything. What are the motivations? What's happening? I don't know.
Well, quite. And actually, one of the things we haven't spoken about with these movies, this is the kind of interesting kind of the thematic thing. In Frogs, these were just animals doing their animal thing, right? Like, whereas, in this movie, they're like mutants, right? They've had some sort of hormone injected in them, right? And I've had a lot of conversations throughout this series about what does and doesn't constitute a kind of like nature horror movie, because if they're actually like mutant man-made, giant animals, is that slightly different to the classic kind of The Birds or Jaws, where it's just an animal killing you just because that's what it does, I suppose. And yeah, there are a few distinctions in the movies we're going to talk about, but yeah, this is one of those where it was actually like chemicals is what created this, right? They're mutant rabbits,
Right. Yeah. But they were created to solve a rabbit problem. So the rabbits were already destroying mankind because they're just eating everything in sight.
Right.
And so the serum was supposed to counteract that.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, it turned them giant size and made them carnivorous.
It's so good.
But you know what? It's okay. Janet Leigh. It's Janet Leigh. First of all, she's a scientist in this, but she doesn't have anything to do, really, except take care of her stupid daughter who caused this whole problem to begin with.
Yes.
But at least she does wear a series of really cool-ass shirts, so that's okay. But most of all, I think Night of the Lepus is just a PSA about not having children. Because really...
Oh, yeah.
It's a little girl's fault that all of that happened. So.
Absolutely. I so often blame the children in these films, I think, Yeah. So good. So there you go. That's Night of the Lepus. Incredible. 1972. We're going to jump forward a couple of years now to... This is a movie that I've had so many people write in and say, you have to cover this. I'd never seen it before this week. This is Phase 4 from 1974.
In the next few moments, we will try to give you an impression of a new kind of film experience. If your curiosity is aroused, you are ready for Phase 4.
Directed by Saul Bass. Desert ants form a group intelligence, and wage war on humans, and it's up to a couple of scientists to stop them. What a strange film. What did you make of this film, Stacie?
It is really strange. I had never seen it before this week either. I watched it for this show because I never really knew what it was about, because all the screenshots you see make it look like a sci-fi movie.
Right, exactly. And Phase 4 isn't as exciting a title as like Ants! Or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't tell you what you get.
Yeah.
Phase 4 could be about anything. But this was a really cool movie. I think it's interesting because this movie is just like lowbrow animals run amok nonsense, but it's done in like an arty highbrow fashion.
Right, it's arty, isn't it? It's very, it's vibey, this film. It's quite a vibe.
Yeah, it really is. It's cool. Like, I think it's something that everybody should see one time, at least, because it is so interesting visually.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where ants, they get on like a wood chip raft.
Yes!
And they're going down the raft and people see it and they're like, ah! I love that part.
Oh, it's so good. And it really is like, it's so 70s, this movie, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, like a kind of, it's like you're looking at some sort of like Pink Floyd visual album sometimes or something, right? I feel like I'm watching some sort of like, I don't know, prog rock, like music video or something. I don't know what it is. Like the cinematography is Dick Bush, who's done like Blood on Satan's Claw, a bunch of cool stuff, but also Ken Russell's Tommy. So like very much of that kind of vibe. There's this kind of like electronic music by Brian Gascoigne as well, which is really cool, kind of synthy music, but very much like of its time as well, right? It just feels so 70s, this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's some shots of like the scientists are staying in this dome, like one of those domes that looks like a half of a golf ball kind of thing, you know?
Yes.
And they've got all these weird, like, fountains that are connected to it, and the ants have built these reflective towers, and there's light beams, and it's like, if this was the gatefold picture of like an Emerson, Lake and Palmer album, you know, like it would fit. It really does have that vibe completely. It's weird.
It's incredible. Really, and I don't know if you've seen this. There was an alternate ending to this movie, and it wasn't found until about 2012. Like they found this faded print in the Saul Bass collection at the Academy Film Archive, and it's been kind of shown to audiences since. And you can watch it on YouTube, but it's this like absolute bonkers. Like it's basically like Saul Bass doing the final sequence of 2001, where they're just going through like hyperspace or whatever the fuck it is, right? It's just like this weird 70s montage of like weird shapes and colours and ants and people doing weird things and stuff. It's great. But again, like, I just imagine they just wanted a bunch of people to just like smoke weed and talk about, you know, our place in the world while they watched this movie, you know?
Yeah. It feels like the movie that would be shown with like a laser light show at the local museum.
People being like, well, man, maybe we're all just ants, man, just crawling around this earth.
Yeah, who's the ant and who's the man?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the thing, it is as goofy as any of these other movies. It's like, oh, a cosmic event made ants like wicked smart.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. Like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing how much ants feature in a lot of these movies, actually, right? It's interesting that ants are the creatures that a lot of storytellers think, yeah, these could be our monsters, right? It's really interesting.
Right. They seem like the most innocuous, really. But as they say in Ants, ! Everybody's got them.
Everybody's got them.
Hey,
there you go.
Everybody's got them.
Well, there you go. So that is Phase 4 from 1974.
She's dead, wrapped in plastic.
I thought good news.
One day, my log will have something to say about this.
Are you Laura Palmer?
Calling all Twin Peaks fans out there, if you would love to hear even more Stacie Ponder, why not check out our Evolution of Horror sister podcast, The Detective and the Log Lady. That is a Twin Peaks rewatch podcast in which Stacie Ponder and I every week are going through Twin Peaks from beginning to end, episode by episode. I am, of course, a huge fan of Twin Peaks, but as already mentioned in this week's episode, Stacie is watching Twin Peaks for the very first time. So you get to hear Stacie's reactions to all of the bonkers goings on in the world of Twin Peaks. We are currently just up to the final episode of season 1 of Twin Peaks. So we have already covered some incredible stuff, and it's only about to get even more bonkers and fun. So whether you're a Twin Peaks superfan like me, or perhaps you're thinking of watching Twin Peaks for the first time like Stacie, come and join us on this journey. Check out The Detective and the Log Lady wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, Stacie, let's carry on with our list of animal attack movies. We are going to jump to 1 year later, 1975, to discuss the movie Bug.
It was a day like any other. The air hung heavy with the heat. Then it happened. A crack in the land that reached to the very bowels of the earth itself, spitting out the fires of hell. And the gleaming black bug that had no eyes and looked like a rock. It traveled in the exhaust pipes of cars, making fire, killing, and infesting the land with a burning terror.
Bug from 1975. This is directed by Jeannot Szwarc, who would go on to direct Jaws 2 a couple of years later after this. And the movie is also written by the one and only William Castle. Incredible. It stars Bradford Dillman, Joanna Miles, Richard Gilliland, Patty McCormack. An earthquake releases a strain of mutant cockroaches with the ability to start fires, which proceed to cause destructive chaos in a small town. Incredible. Stacie, I feel as though you must be a fan of this one. Right? What do you think of it?
I mean, I think this movie kind of loses a little steam halfway. Like after... oh, but it's so fun to talk about. I mean... Once Bradford Dillman's wife, once her hair is set on fire by the cockroaches... Which is just one of those sentences that sends me over the moon. Yeah, once she dies. Now, see, if I am set on fire by cockroaches, do I want you to tell? Yeah, I want you to tell people. Like, that's,
yeah, you know. Come on. Again, what a way to go. Put it on your tombstone.
Fun fact, I don't know how familiar you are with the show, but that scene where her hair is set on fire on her birthday of all days, the kitchen that she is in is actually the kitchen from the television show The Brady Bunch.
Oh, I've never seen The Brady Bunch. I don't know whether we ever got that over here.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, it was huge, but it had been canceled like a year or two before Bug was made, and so they just used the kitchen, so it's extra delightful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And, you know, written by William Castle. Does it have that kind of William Castle vibe to you, would you say?
A little bit. I mean, just the premise alone. You can only imagine what he would have done with this in the 60s, where it, like, in a movie theater, there would have been cockroaches falling from the ceiling, like rubber cockroaches or something. You know?
Yes. Oh
I think it loses a little steam after his wife dies, because then it kind of turns into one man on his, like, you know, Prometheus-like quest towards godhood, and, like, you know, he's going to defeat the cockroaches and he's breeding them together and everything. But then you get that moment where you say, should a screen cap from a film, like, should we put that in the Louvre? Which is, of course, when the cockroaches spell out, "We live" on the wall.
I mean, cockroaches, we all know, right? They're going to outlive us all, you know?
Sure. Yeah, but imagine them spelling things on the wall. Would you hate them less?
I mean, I'd be impressed for sure, you know?
But that one man versus something, are you doing at all in this series of unknown origin?
Oh, I'm not
Weller?
actually. No, I've not seen it.
Early 80s movie, really kind of interesting. His wife and child go away and he's left alone, and there's a rat in the apartment. Like, it's a big rat, but it's not like a crazy giant size. And it just becomes him versus the rat, and he just, like, destroys his own home to try to kill this rat, and it's really good.
That sounds good. I might have to check that out then.
Yeah.
And add it in.
Yeah.
Amazing. I guess that, and that's right. I guess we do get a lot of that. Like, often it does become that kind of like one person versus the animal kind of showdown a lot of the time, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah. Which, honestly, am I rooting for the animal? Yeah, kind of.
And of course, like we mentioned, this is the director who would go on to do Jaws 2, which I just talked about on the podcast last week. Are you a fan of Jaws 2 and the Jaws sequels, Stacey?
Oh. Jaws 2 is okay. I mean, it's just one of those things, like, where do you go from Jaws, you know? When it is just a Jaws, it works one time, but how do you follow that up?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, not very well. Clearly not very well. Yeah, God. When you get to Jaws 3D with the kind of computer shark, swimming towards the glass, it's incredible stuff. But anyway, so that was Bug from 1975. Now, in the same year, we oh my God, I just saw you post a clip of this and I was so happy. This is The Giant Spider Invasion from 1975. Directed by Bill Raban and starring Steve Brody and Barbara Hale. Giant spiders from another dimension invade Wisconsin. Simple as that. Do you know, I love also that these plot synopses, they're just like quick one-liners, aren't they? They tell you what you need to know, and that's all you need to know.
Oh, yeah. And a movie like this where it's right there in the title. You know?
Exactly.
That's what you get, a giant spider invasion.
Exactly. None of this Phase 4 arty-farty title nonsense, you know?
Just tell me what frogs. That should be frogs, etc. But still, there are frogs in it.
Exactly. Oh my God, what do you think of this movie, Stacey?
Well, I am a big fan of Bill Rabane. I'm a Rabaniac. I'm not gonna lie.
Tell us about him. What else does he do? What's he known for?
Oh boy. I'm not sure if he's known for anything. But he did The Alpha Incident. He did Twister's Revenge. He did this movie I love called The Game, also known as The Cold. Demons of Ludlow. He was a really super duper low budget filmmaker in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
One of those filmmakers where you read the credits and every other person's last name is Rabane because it's all like relatives, you know?
Yeah.
And his stuff is just really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a certain kind of sensibility to a Bill Rabane picture that's just really strange. And you see it all in The Giant Spider Invasion, which is like, it's not so much a movie as it is just a series of scenes
right
that happen.
Yes.
And then eventually it stops and that's the end of the movie. It's like he almost always ends on a freeze frame. In this movie, you have a few shots that are just completely out of focus.
Oh my God, yeah.
He usually got like one or two name actors. Like in this, Barbara Hale is from Perry Mason.
Mm-hmm.
She was really big on that show. And he has Alan Hale, who was the skipper on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Who delivers a couple of lines directly to the camera for some reason.
Yeah, right, that's so weird. Yeah. So weird.
But his stuff is so charming, and there's some kind, like that homegrown kind of weirdness I love.
Mm-hmm.
And he does really kind of cosmic stuff that is totally out there and makes zero sense. But you go with it.
And we get normal size spiders, we get the giant spiders, we get all kinds of spiders in this movie. Some incredible set pieces as well. The best moment is the moment that you filmed and posted on your Instagram, Stacey, where the giant spider starts crawling over that hill, and those two people just collapse and roll down the hill. In sheer terror.
It's like this, a black hole opens for some reason. Like, he'll just throw science out there, and it doesn't make any sense, but nobody cares. It's like a black hole opens, and all these little, like, softball-size meteorites come through, and inside the meteorites are tarantulas. And then one or two of the tarantulas get really big. And when I say really big, it's like, this is not a Night of the Lepus. I can't tell how big they are. They made like 30-foot spiders. Mm-hmm. And I think they put, like, according to legend, they put them like on top of Volkswagens.
Oh, amazing.
I just love it. It looks horrible, but it's just the best thing you've ever seen.
I think, like, you put it perfectly when you said charm. Like, these movies just have a lot of charm to them, I think, don't they, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody's in it. It's like you're gonna run up the hill and be confronted with the 30-foot paper mache spider or whatever it was. And then you're gonna fall and roll down the hill, but you're gonna, like, do it seriously. Like, they're treating the most ridiculous things completely straight-faced.
Well, thank you for bringing that one to my attention. I'd never heard of the giant spider invasion before you put it on the list, but incredible stuff.
It's great. It's really fun. It's just really fun. And that's one of the movies, actually, that is one of the few that directly references Jaws. Like, at some point, somebody says, like, hey, did you see that movie Jaws?
Oh, yeah.
This spider makes that shark look like a goldfish.
Yes. Incredible. Oh, I love it. Yeah, so I guess, we're into the kind of post-Jaws era now of all of these films, which is interesting. So we move on. So that was the giant spider invasion. Incredible. It does what it says on the tin, you know, from 1975. Amazing. Next, we come to Grizzly from 1976.
This motion picture does not cater to fantasy. You will see nature's most savage man-eating animal. By its size alone, it can overpower and devour any human. Grizzly.
I haven't had a chance to watch this one. Directed by William Girdler, director of The Manitou, of course. Starring Christopher George, Andrew Prince, Joan McCall. An 18-foot tall grizzly bear terrorizes a state park, leaving ranger Mike Kelly, photographer Alison Corwin, and chopper pilot Dan Stober to track down the beast. Oh, what did you think of this one, Stacie?
Well, as you might assume, I am a huge fan of William Girdler.
Yeah, I thought you might be. Yeah,
I love his filmography. He was tragically taken from us too soon. A helicopter crash when he was scouting locations for a new film. He was only 30 when he died, and it really sucks because I do wonder, like, what he would have done, because he put out, like, 10 films in 5 years or something, and they're all really interesting. And I just think he was actually a terrific filmmaker and could have really gone places. So so he made, for people who don't know, he made movies like also Day of the Animals, which we're going to talk about in a minute, The Manitou. He made Abby as well. Abby is that kind of like blaxploitation version of The Exorcist, right? Yeah.
Yep.
3 on a Meat Hook. He did. He, like, kind of dabbled in a lot of different subgenres.
Yeah.
But everybody needs to see The Manitou once in their life. Like,
I think it was from you and possibly Gaylords of... Did you guys cover it on Gaylords of Darkness? I'm pretty sure you're the reason I watched The Manitou, and it really was something.
Yeah. That's the pull quote. This movie really is something. So Grizzly, of the 2 movies of his that we're going to talk about today, Grizzly is my least favorite, I would say. It was billed, it might even be the official tagline, I'm not sure, but this movie was billed as Jaws with claws.
Right, okay, so they're really cashing in then, yeah.
Yeah, and it basically just is Jaws, but in the forest. Like, you have Christopher George as the park ranger, who's really the Chief Brody character. Yeah. Richard Jekyll is the naturalist with the blue beanie.
Yeah.
Andrew Prine is the hotshot pilot who's, like, gruff and has seen some shit, whatever. It's got the evil park owner who won't close down the park until a child is attacked by the grizzly bear. Like, the music sounds like Jaws. Like, it really just is Jaws.
Right. Yeah. So. Okay. All right, good. Well, I'll maybe give that a watch at some point. I feel like I haven't seen enough killer bear movies across this series yet. So maybe I do need to give that one a watch. I feel like, what are some of the really great kind of killer bear movies? I feel like there's maybe not been enough yet, of good ones at least.
Yeah. No, I still think it's worth watching, especially if you haven't seen it. It is, everybody is expendable, like, I love that. The bear is kind of an issue in terms of, like, they call it an 18-foot bear. It's clearly just like a regular sized bear. So there's the scale the scale problems.
Yes. So they use shots of a real bear, do they?
For the most part. Then there's like, somebody in a bear costume or like a paw.
Yeah.
Like people do get taken out and there's a lot of like paws swiping and like they do attack a child.
Oh, brilliant.
And, like you can see the kid is totally like smiling because it's like hugging a man in a bear suit. So the kid's having a great time.
Yeah.
But then like the kid, like they show the carnage, like it's crazy. And I will say, I'm not going to make capo in the LGBT mafia unless I push the gay agenda at every opportunity.
Absolutely. Go ahead, please. Yes.
So I would like to go on the record stating that the couple at the beginning of this movie is a lesbian couple.
Oh.
That's all. That's all I have to say.
Excellent.
There's no evidence to the contrary, so there you go.
So Grizzly is the first queer horror masterpiece on this list so far, is what you're saying. Okay.
I will also say, to go back to Frogs, if I may.
Oh, yeah.
That one of the actors in it, I don't know, watching it this time for the show, for some reason, he did something, like the way he moved through a scene, I said, oh, he's gay. Like I just, your special gay vision, like just clocks in sometimes. And I was like, oh, he's gay. And so I like looked him up and sadly, his name's Nicholas Cortland. And sadly, I saw that he died in 1988 at the age of 47 in New York. And so I was like, oh, what does that tell you? Like, yes, he died from AIDS. Like, yeah, he was gay.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, for just a moment, I had that sadness of like how many people we lost in the 80s.
Oh God, it's so sad, isn't it? And it's happened a lot on this podcast when we've talked about kind of slasher movies and genre movies, right? There was so many people in the industry, great actors and performers from the 70s and 80s who we then lost, right? Way too early. Yeah.
So those are the only two. Don't worry, anybody who's going to write an angry email. I think those are the only two movies where I'm going to push my agenda. So.
Yeah, stop trying to make these movies so woke, Stacie. Oh my God.
Why do you have to make everything gay?
Yeah.
Listen, I could make every one of these movies gay if I had the time.
Oh, I love it.
But,
I love it. I'm no complaints here. Let's do it. All right, let's move on. Oh, this is a good one. We're going to stay in 1976 and we're going to talk next about SQUIRM.
It was a violent summer storm. Millions of volts slashed the earth.
That was the worst storm we've had since I was knee-high to a duck.
Folks talked about it and started getting things back to normal. When Mick hit town for his vacation.
Well, it's straight ahead about 5 miles.
But things weren't normal. There were changes.
Mother bit me. I never saw him bite like that.
Strange, frightful changes. That night, it all started.
Stop doing that.
I'm not doing anything.
This was the night of the crawling terror. American International presents SQUIRM.
Written and directed by Jeff Lieberman, who would go on to make films like Just Before Dawn. A storm causes power lines to break and touch the ground. Therefore, obviously, millions of man-eating worms crawl out of the earth where they just start munching on the locals, basically, right? Killer worms. Stacie, what do you think of this one?
You gonna be the worm face now. Sorry, that's the best line in the movie.
Oh, the dialogue alone. Oh,
yeah.
Incredible.
SQUIRM is great. I feel like SQUIRM doesn't get enough attention and love in wider circles, in horror circles, even when you're talking about animal attack movies. I feel like SQUIRM is kind of forgotten. And maybe it's just because, no offense to any worm lovers out there, but worms are just unappealing. So, right?
I love it. Yeah.
They serve a purpose. I love them in the sense that, all God's creatures or whatever, but no thanks.
No, but they are quite again, I find some scenes in this movie are quite creepy and squirmy. I think because of that, right? Like, just all of them kind of like pouring in through a kind of hole in the ceiling and dropping on people's faces and stuff. It is kind of gross and creepy, this movie, actually. I like it.
Oh, it really is. And there is no shortage of worms in this movie. Ugh. And this is just the kind of movie that, like, would not work with CGI.
No.
Like, there's something that you need. It's like in Bloody Mary 2 or 3, where the spiders come out of the girl's face and they're clearly like clip art.
Oh, God. Yeah.
CG, like, it just doesn't work. But here, where you have people with worms on them, oh, it's great. But, like, they come out of a shower head, like a Play-Doh fun factory.
Oh, the shower bit. Yeah, horrible.
They just, like, they infest bodies and burst out of bodies, and people have worms coming out of their faces, and it's just...
Yeah.
It's great. But it's also, this is another one of those movies that I think is also very charming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the small town, the sort of stories, like the people's stories, the characters. That's one of the things I love about a disaster movie with an all-star cast, or like these movies, is you have such a broad array of characters, and unlike a lot of slasher movies, most of the characters in the Animal Attack movies kind of have personalities and stories.
Yes.
And are just afforded a little more than they are in slasher movies.
Oh, totally. And you get older characters, you get children, you don't just get like high school kids, right, or college kids, you know, like you do get a wide range of weird, wacky, larger than life characters, often played really well by character actors, right? I agree. I think the characters are always much more interesting in these types of movies than they are in, like you say, like a slasher, for example. Yeah.
And I think SQUIRM is a really good example of that. Like, it's a small southern town, but this kid comes down from the big city to visit his girlfriend, and it's just like, it's really wonderful.
Yeah,
I love
good.
SQUIRM. How could a movie about worms be so charming?
Oh, I know, right? Who knew? Early movie for special effect makeup artist Rick Baker, of course, as well. So this is his handiwork. So yeah, maybe that's I guess that's part of why. Because I do think, you know, of the ones that I've seen on this list, I think the effects look pretty good, right? Like I say, they're pretty creepy and horrible, you know?
Yeah. And the worms kind of roar again, so...
Yeah. That is the problem with a lot of these, right? Is that, like, they have to try and make them make a scary noise. Even by Jaws 4, the shark was kind of, like, roaring and growling. So good. Man. So there you go. So that's SQUIRM from 1976. Another movie from 1976 next, which I'm quite sad I haven't had time to watch this one, because I looked at the trailer and it looked incredible. This is a movie called The Food of the Gods.
More frightening than his War of the Worlds. More imaginative than his time machine. Now, H.G. Wells' masterpiece of science fiction, The Food of the Gods. The terrifying tale of man fighting for his life against an ecology gone berserk. This is the last chance for an unsuspecting world against harmless animals and insects made huge and vicious by the food of the gods.
Food of the Gods. This is written and directed by Bert I. Gordon, based on a book by H.G. Wells, starring Marjoe Gortner, Pamela Frankman. A group of friends travel to a remote Canadian island to hunt, only to be attacked by giant killer animals which have populated the place. Incredible. Stacie, tell me a bit about this one. What do you think of it?
Oh my god. Food of the Gods is the girl who got away from me. And I'll tell you why. I will say I did not watch it again for this show, because the first, 45 minutes of this movie, it is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
It's like these farmers find this stuff on their land that looks like porridge, kind of, and they think it's oil because they're stupid farmers, I guess. They think it's oil, and then when they find out that it's not oil, they feed it to their chickens, which is, again,
incredible.
Bad decisions everywhere, and this makes the animals get really big, right? So I'm in heaven. The effects are terrible. I don't care. But it's got, like, Marjo Gortner, my man. He's, like, fighting giant chickens. The legendary, and I mean that with all sincerity, the legendary Ida Lupino has to, like, battle giant maggots. Like, it's just the best movie you've ever seen in your life. There's a rat attack, and it alternates between, like, a man in an actual car with a giant rat puppet head coming through the windshield. It alternates between that and then, like, a regular-sized rat on a scale model car.
Oh, my God, amazing.
So it's just amazing. And then, unfortunately, the movie takes the man is gonna fight back turn. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of, like, just rat massacres.
Oh, no.
Like actual violence against actual rats. Like, just slaughtering rats, shooting them with paint guns, shooting them with guns. Like, it's just, it's too much to watch. Like, I can't do it. And so I have not revisited this movie, and it was such a letdown the first time I saw it.
Oh, God. Okay, I'm actually really glad then that I didn't get time to watch this one. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Because you don't see that in the trailer. They must just show images from the first half that you were talking about, which just looked incredible, like giant chickens, these like rats bursting in through windows, and like all these like giant spiders. The visual effects looked terrible, looked amazing. I absolutely loved the look of it. Yeah,
that's like the first half, and I believe me, I was ready to like marry this movie. Because it was amazing. I'm like, Ida Lupino with giant maggots. This is heaven. Oh. And then just all that stuff happened. And I can't. And it is a risk you take with, like, 70s animal attack movies.
Yeah.
Another movie we're going to talk about definitely has some real violence in it. Or, like, if it's, like, an Italian animal attack movie, I'm always a little nervous. Because stuff's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but I will say, though, out of this whole list, like, I'm sure there's, collateral damage on things, but Food of the Gods is one of only 2 movies where I'm like, oh, this is...
Yeah. That, I mean, in some ways, that is actually pretty impressive for a whole bunch of movies from the 1970s involving animals, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. So let's move on. So that was The Food of the Gods from 1976. Now we're going to move on to a movie called Ants! !, It Happened at Lakewood Manor from 1977.
The ants are coming into the hall.
Mike, we gotta get out of here, look.
Then we're gonna come up there and get you.
How long?
No more than half an hour.
Listen, I don't think we've got 5 minutes.
These ants could ruin a whole city, not just the delis.
This has a hilarious poster, which is just basically a woman's cleavage covered in ants. Brilliant. And this is directed by Robert Shearer. It's a made-for-TV movie starring Robert Foxworth, Linda Day George, and Myrna Loy, right? An old-fashioned lakeside hotel targeted for purchase by an unsavory gambling casino promoter and situated next to a construction site is attacked by an army of poisonous ants. Efforts to contain the ants and rescue those trapped in the hotel are hampered by the progress of the creepy crawlers upwards from floor to floor. Oh my God, Stacie, this sounds amazing. This sounds like Wreck or Dread or one of those like tower block horror movies, but with ants, basically.
Oh man. On my short list of like, which ones of these do I recommend? Do I recommend Ants! ! Are you kidding? I love ants. Oh my God. This movie is so good, and it's another one that is really kind of not talked about enough. In the cast, unbelievable. You mentioned Robert Foxworth, Linda Day George, Suzanne Summers of television's Three's Company, and the Thigh Master.
Thigh Master.
I don't know if she invented or sold or whatever the Thigh Master was it the 80s, maybe the 90s?
Love that.
Myrna Loy, the esteemed Myrna Loy of the Thin Man films, is in this.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's made for TV, but it goes pretty hard. And yeah, it's like a 5-story hotel or something, and they have to keep moving up as the ants move up.
sounds incredible.
How are they going to get out of the hotel?
Oh.
And it's just, this movie will make you feel like you have ants on you.
Yeah.
100%. The way it's shot, like they use real ants, like real tiny little ants, but there are billions of ants in this, and the ants are crawling all over the actors.
Oh God.
And so you will have the heebies and the jeebies by the time this is over.
Oh God. I mean, actually, like, one of the things, I mean, the actors have to go through a lot in these movies, don't they? Because so often they do have to actually get covered in, spiders, ants, cockroaches, whatever it might be, right? It must be pretty grim at times for these actors.
Oh, it's awful. Suzanne Summers, they're all over her. By the end of the movie, it's like the way they're going to survive until they can be rescued is like an ant expert tells them over the phone, like, don't move. If you don't move, then the ants won't bite you. And so they have to sit and wait for rescue, not moving, while the ants are crawling all over them, and they're breathing through tubes they've made out of wallpaper.
Oh, God. Amazing.
Oh, it's so good. Like, this movie gets really chaotic towards the end. Like, Myrna Loy, her character's in a wheelchair. And so it's like, how are we going to evacuate her from like the 4th floor or whatever? And so they send over a helicopter and they lower a basket. And so it's like, it's Myrna Loy, like a Hollywood icon who's been working since the 1920s, is like tossed into a helicopter basket, and they haul her away, and then the helicopter kicks up a cloud of ants, and like it's just like pure chaos. And it's ants. Please watch Ants.
Oh my God. Well, this sounds absolutely incredible. I love this. And I know you love a TV movie too. This ticks all your boxes by the sounds of it.
It really did.
Yeah.
Is it the perfect movie? Absolutely.
Incredible.
Absolutely.
Incredible. Well, there we go. So that one was Ants, aka It Happened at Lakewood Manor from 1977. Love it. Also from 1977. It was a stacked year, 77. So we've got way more films from this year to come. Next one, more Ants, Empire of the Ants.
In this fantastic tale, Wells tells the chilling story of a colony of ants who feed on atomic waste, causing them to grow into large, voracious monsters.
God, let's get out of here, come on!
And these giant ants are actually able to control humans.
Also directed by Burt I. Gordon, right, of Food of the Gods, based on a story by H.G. Wells. Again, this one starring Joan Collins, Robert Lansing and a bunch of other people. Con artist Marilyn Fraser tries to sell bogus real estate deals in an area overrun by giant ants. Oh, Stacie.
I mean, come on, 1977. I mean, it was just a great year for horror in general, but it really was the year for these movies, right? Like
this does sound a bit like I asked a computer to generate like a Stacie Ponder movie for me, like Joan Collins playing a con artist grifter with giant ants from 1977. This is amazing.
Oh boy. This movie also first of all, this is a Samuel Z. Arkoff production. We see his name pop up probably 5 or 6 times over the course of all of these movies that we're talking about today. One of the executives of AIP, American International Pictures, who did all the Roger Corman movies. It's just one of those things when you see like Samuel Z. Arkoff presents, you just settle in. You're like, yeah, here it comes. Time for the good stuff. God. And this one is just wonderful. Like a bunch of people end up trapped in the swamp by giant ants, including Pamela Susan Shoop, who horror fans and you, Mike, I'm sure know as the nurse who was boiled in the hot tub by Michael Myers in Halloween 2.
Incredible.
Yep. She's in this. It's really, I love Empire of the Ants, boy. Woo.
And you've got like, it's kind of like like optical effects, right? Making these ants look like huge giant ants, right? In this movie.
Yeah. Bert I. Gordon, who did the same thing in Food of the Gods, basically. I think to actually much better effect in Empire of the Ants. Like,
yeah,
you're never going to think that these are real ants, but it's also actually not that bad. The effects are pretty well done. It's like real ants like superimposed over something and like blown up so they look really big, like walking down a dock towards a boat or something.
Yeah.
Or he films them in close up, but there's clearly miniatures used to make it look like trees and stuff nearby. So the scale works. And then when people get attacked, here comes the giant puppet ant head.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, it was like a large rubber mock-up I was reading, right, apparently. And Joan Collins apparently later said that she did not like working with the ant props as they bumped and scratched the actors, including herself. She was very unhappy with the rubber ant props.
I mean, that's what I want Joan Collins to say.
Yeah.
You know, like if it was any of the other actors, I'd be like, oh, come on. But that's what I want to hear Joan Collins say, you know. She's delicious in this, as you might expect. Like, she's a real bitch to everybody, of course.
Yeah, incredible.
But the group of people, they're trapped down in the, like, swampland where she's trying to sell them pieces of property. And so it's like, how are they going to get out of here? But what I love about Empire of the Ants is, like, it takes kind of a turn, maybe halfway or 3/4 of the way through it, where it becomes a town with a secret movie.
Oh.
And which is another one of my favorite subgenres. So they kind of get out of the swamp, but the survivors find themselves in even more trouble when they end up in a town with a secret.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, God, it really is ticking all your boxes. Incredible.
It is. I told you, bury me in these movies. I don't know how, but...
Yeah. Incredible. Well, I not many people seem to agree with you because apparently it has a 5% approval rating currently on Rotten Tomatoes and a score of 2.7 out of 10 on IMDb, apparently. But, you know, what do they know?
Fools.
Yeah.
Fools.
Yeah.
All of them. It's so much fun. It's one of those things where I'm just like, how could anybody watch Empire of the Ants and not love it? I just don't get it.
Yeah. There you go.
It's a good time.
It sounds like a really good time. I'm going to check this one out as soon as I can as well. Incredible. So that's Empire of the Ants from 1977. More spiders now from the same year. We've got from 1977's Kingdom of the Spiders.
Why would spiders suddenly turn aggressive?
This right here is scientific phenomenon. One minute they weren't there, the next minute they were everywhere.
How do we get rid of them?
There's not just a few spiders out there, there's millions of them. And your town is right in their path.
Starring William Shatner, directed by John Bud Cardos. In rural Arizona, countless killer tarantulas are migrating through a farm town, killing every living thing in their path. The town's veterinarian will do anything in his power to survive the onslaught. Oh my God.
I will say, if Kingdom of the Spiders has a fault, it has one fault. And that is that there is real spider trauma in this. It's all tarantulas, which tarantulas are so cute. Like, I don't want them on me, but they're so cute.
Yeah, they are actually. Little fuzzy things, yeah.
Yeah. And so there is real spider trauma in this movie, so I just have to look away from the screen really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But why do I watch this one where I don't watch Food of the Gods? Well, I guess I'm a hypocrite, first of all. But second of all, Kingdom of the Spiders is just so good. Like, it's a top 5 out of these movies we're talking about. Incredible movie. It's so good.
Tell me about what makes it so good. Is it like the characters? Is it the effects? Like, why does this one stand above the others for you?
Kingdom of the Spiders, first of all, it goes hard, which is something that I love. We kind of talked about it, about these movies, is that everybody is expendable in an animal attack movie from the 70s. Mm-hmm. You know, the hero may not survive. You never know who's going to live or who's going to die. And Kingdom of the Spiders goes hard. It starts off, first of all, with a theme song, Mike, okay?
Oh my
Peaceful
God.
Verde Valley by Dorsey Burnett. So right from the jump, you're in it to win it with this movie. And then we get a cow is attacked by spiders, and I've talked about this before, maybe on your show. I actually wrote a column about this cow in Rue Morgue magazine, and you say, they just let you do whatever you want, huh? I say, well, sometimes they do. Because the way it's edited, you will think that this cow is acting. It's just incredible filmmaking, okay?
Oh, yeah, you did mention this cow to me, and I still haven't had time to watch this damn movie now, and I'm really sad about it.
Really need to...
I'm going to have to check this out.
You really have to. It's a must. It is, like, of the animal attack movies, Kingdom of the Spiders is right up there. It's got a great cast. I mean, William Shatner is William Shatner, of course.
Yeah.
Woody Strode is in this as the rancher. He's the rancher who owns the cow that can act. He had a really interesting career. Really kind of pioneering black actor. Pardon me for... All right, I lied. I have to push the gay agenda one more time. Tiffany Bowling shows up as the world's hottest entomologist. She drives into town in her convertible Mercedes with, like, her driving gloves and her scarf on her neck, and she's one for the ages.
Oh, my God, amazing.
Total down... Like, spoilers. Downer ending like you've never seen before.
Oh... Interesting, because these movies don't often have downer endings, actually, do they? That's interesting.
Yeah. This one perhaps has the downer ending. But I will say you get a sense of, like when the mayor refuses to close the beach in Amityville and there's like, financial concerns for the town, et cetera, et cetera. You get the sense in Kingdom of the Spiders that the town is really struggling, that the people, this man is relying on this cow for his future, and he had to save up money for a long time to buy a cow. You know what I mean? And so it's just like the small town drama really works.
Love that. Yeah.
And then his wife is like freaking out, and there's a spider on her hand, so she shoots her hand.
Oh my God, incredible.
But it's another one of those environmental animal attack movies. Like the spiders are pissed off because we're using too much DDT.
Right.
So pesticides come up, like they came up in frogs, like pollution and pesticides, and what are we doing? And how are we going to kill the animals without also killing all the other animals or kill the crops? And,
Right. Oh my God, I love it. This sounds great. Yeah, God, apparently a lot of the actors on set were bitten by the tarantulas, but because they don't actually have harmful venom, it was all good. Apparently they just had troublesome itching, is according to Wikipedia, is what these poor actors had to suffer on set. And the tarantulas, oh my God, they had like so many tarantulas that they had to keep in certain warm conditions. And because of the spiders' cannibalistic tendencies, all 5,000 spiders had to be kept in separate containers from each other.
Oh my God.
During the shooting of the films. Jesus.
Tarantulas don't mess around. Wow.
So they actually used 5,000 live tarantulas for making this movie. That is... Yeah.
I believe it.
And then also, by the sounds of it, harmed a lot of them as well, which that's a shame.
Yeah, and 3 of the tarantulas went on to star in something else.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Oh, no.
So that's too bad, but man, God, it's a good movie, though. Whew.
Oh, incredible. Well, there we go. So that is Kingdom of the Spiders from 1977. Another banger from 1977, Day of the Animals.
Although the effect on living organisms is not yet known, people are being advised to remain indoors whenever possible, especially those in high-altitude areas where the sun's rays would be naturally stronger.
Hello, dog. I told you that sun seemed damn peculiar today.
Of course, directed by William Girdner, starring Christopher George and Linda Day George and Leslie Nielsen, among other people, right? A battle for survival ensues after a group of hikers encounter a chemically imbalanced forest. Oh my God. Stacie, what do you think of this one?
No. This is another one of those where it's like the late 70s and we're starting to say like, does mankind affect the environment? Perhaps.
Yeah.
Because everything was aerosol in the 70s, right? And before that. It's like deodorant was in an aerosol can. Like, everything was aerosol. And so now, in Day of the Animals, the ozone layer is fucked. And they put up the text at the beginning is like, Day of the Animals is what could happen if we don't stop destroying the ozone. And what happens is all of the animals and several humans just succumb to UV madness, right? Like, they just go crazy. And Day of the Animals, if you've never seen Day of the Animals, please, people, in the words of Dale Cooper, every day, once a day, give yourself a present.
Exactly that. It is a gift, this movie. It's a gift.
It really is. I mean, all you have to tell me is that Christopher George and Linda Day George are in it.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm like, oh, so it's perfect is what you're telling me? It's a perfect movie? Okay. But Leslie Nielsen. Oh,
I love Leslie Nielsen so much.
He is so good in this movie. He is such an asshole.
Yeah.
He's an ad exec. He hates everybody. He's a racist. He's sexist. He's just the worst person. And by the end of this movie, he is topless.
Yes.
In a rainstorm, railing at the heavens and fist fighting a bear.
Incredible.
And so even if that was the only scene in the movie, I would still say you have to see this movie. Like, it's just perfect.
It's so good. It's so good. And some of the animal stuff is really great. There's a really scary dog, and there's like loads of good. Like, again, it's just like filled with fun set pieces as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so good.
The animals kind of like run strike ops in this. Like a lot of it. Like a group of hikers is stranded like up in the high country. And that's where the ozone is the thinnest and, whatever. And so the animals are all pissed off. And, like, they'll be walking along and just the animals will just be around staring at them. And mountain lion will come in and fuck somebody up for a few seconds and then run away.
Yes.
And they just keep doing that. And, like, birds attack and mountain lions and wolves and bears and just everything.
Well, it's a bit Hitchcock's The Birds, that, isn't it? These kind of like sporadic coordinated attacks kind of thing, right? That these animals just seem to be doing. It's great.
Yeah. They'll just walk by a tree and it'll be full of birds of prey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's really great. It's a really fun cast. People really go through it in this movie. Like, some of the characters really go through it in this movie.
Oh, so good. Because, I guess this was before Leslie Nielsen became, like, proper comedy kind of actor, right, at this point in his career.
Yeah, because he started out as, like, leading man material, right?
Yeah, and he was so good at it. And I guess that's what, he's really good at playing straight, which also makes him so funny in comedies too, right? Because of that kind of straight-lacedness of him,
So this character is kind of, I would say, adjacent to his character in Creepshow.
Yes.
That's
right.
Real a-hole, sort of just a jerk. Like, this guy is such a jerk, and it's just... Leslie Nielsen is so great.
So good. So good. Oh, well, there we go. So that's Day of the Animals from 1977. We're going to move on to 1978 now. Now, this is one that you mentioned, Stacie, I think, and added to the list. This is Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell.
Something different about him.
I think you're imagining things.
What's the dog? The dog.
Directed by Curtis Harrington, a dog that is a minion of Satan terrorizes a suburban family. Incredible, Stacie.
With that synopsis, right? This movie, this is perhaps, like, all of the movies on the list are ludicrous, right? Like, we established that going in.
Yeah.
This is the stupidest one. This movie is just... it absolutely typifies what I love about movie Satanists. Is just like, what are your plans?
Yeah.
What, you know?
This sounds as though it's got more in common with like an Omen type of movie as opposed to like an eco horror or something, right? Yeah, it sounds because isn't it more like people kind of have sort of horrific supernatural accidents around this dog and that kind of thing, right?
It's like the Satanists show up. First of all, the Satanists drive a black station wagon, which I don't know. I mean, it is black, but it's a station wagon, so come on.
Oh, incredible.
But one of the lead Satanist is Martine Beswick, who was she was in a bunch of exploitation movies and James Bond movies and some horror movies, and like she's just great. She absolutely looks like a Satanist. Like she just has that look about her.
Incredible.
And so they find a dog because they want to sire satanic puppies, I guess. Somehow this is going to figure into their master plans. I don't get it. And then they give the puppies away. And family takes in one of the puppies, Richard Crenna, Yvette Mimieux. And the children are played by Kim Richards, excuse me, yes, of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, obviously. Sister of Kyle.
Oh my God.
But, you know, horror icon, thank you. And her brother is played by Ike Eisenman. And so this movie actually reunited the two kids from the Witch Mountain movies.
Oh my God.
So they are reunited as brother and sister, except now they go bad because of the influence of the satanic puppy. And so they create like a satanic clubhouse in the attic, and like they talk back. It's just like
corrupted.
They're totally corrupted. It's very satanic panic, I will say, this movie. The whole family kind of turns against the dad because they get into Satanism because of the puppy. And so he's got to save the day. But it's
such a cute looking puppy as well, though.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's really adorable. And it grows up, it's a German Shepherd, but it's just kind of like the dog just sits there and we're supposed to find it scary.
Right.
You know? It's that kind of thing. And like the maid, of course, it's got that trope of the like Hispanic maid who like she has her altar in her room and she's like, oh, the dog gives me funny feelings.
Yeah.
And like she, you know, prays against the dog. And then this is the kind of thing that happens in this movie is like she sees the dog and she's like, oh, I'm afraid of the dog. And she backs up and hits a candle and her robe sets on fire.
Oh my God, amazing.
So it's like the dog didn't really do anything.
No.
No.
So this is another one of those kind of like Annabelle type situations where the dog just gets to sit there and watch it happen, basically.
Yeah. And at the end, it's like, okay, we took care of that one puppy, but there were like 10 puppies in the litter. Oh, no. Your dog could be a satanic dog and you might not even know.
Oh my God, incredible. Incredible.
Chilling. Blood curdling. Chilling.
Sleep well, everybody. Oh my God, incredible. Love it. Love it. Well, that sounds excellent. That's Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell from 1978. Now, on the other end of the spectrum now, a blockbuster movie. We can't not mention, of course, an Irwin Allen movie from 1978, which is, of course, The Swarm.
For more than 20 years, scientists have known that a swarm of killer bees has been headed towards the United States. Now, Warner Brothers presents Irwin Allen's The Swarm.
We have visual contact.
Identify.
A black mass, sir. A moving black mass.
We have been invaded by an enemy far more lethal than any human force.
Starring Michael Caine, Catherine Ross, Richard Widmark, Richard Chamberlain, Olivia de Havilland, Ben Johnson, Lee Grant, Jose Ferrer, Patty Duke Aston, Slim Pickens, Bradford Dillman, Fred McMurray, and Henry Fonda.
Which, oh my God, what a cast, right? This is a film, of course, about the deadly African bees killing people in Texas. It goes on for about 3.5 hours. It stars Michael Caine, Olivia de Havilland, Catherine Ross, Richard Widmark, Slim Pickens, Patty Duke, Jose Ferrer, Fred McCauley, Henry Fonda, a whole bunch of other people, right? What do you think of this one, Stacie?
I love The Swarm. I recognize that it is like 3 hours, feels like 3 months. It is a long movie and you will feel every second of it. Like you will feel like like at the end of, Salem's Lot, when they pound the stake into Mr. Barlow and then he like desiccates and blows away. You'll feel that happening to yourself as you watch The Swarm.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It's so worth it. It's this movie is trying so very hard to be important.
Yes, absolutely.
And prestigious, and it fails on every level.
It's true. This is trying to be an A picture, right? Not a
Yeah.
B picture, this movie. It's so interesting. Yeah.
It's really Michael Caine, I don't know.
Oh.
Is Michael Caine a good actor?
Oh, I guess he's just very good at doing his usual Michael Caine thing, right?
Yeah. He literally just shouts every line in this movie with really weird cadence. Did you know that the bees have always been our friends? Like, it's just, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Oh, but I live for like the love triangle between Olivia de Havilland and Fred McMurray and Slim Pickens. Like, I love it.
Oh.
This is one of those movies where it's like, okay, we have to worry about the environment, but we have to kill the bees. But we have to be environmentally friendly. Okay, let's kill the bees by setting the Gulf of Mexico on fire.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
But it's one of those things, like, the bees will kill you right away.
Yeah.
If you get stung by too many. But if they don't kill you, if you happen to live, you will start hallucinating giant bees for some reason.
What the hell? There's a bit too much crammed in this movie, right? It does not need to be 3 days long,
No.
But there are some great I mean, I do, if I have one phobia, irrational animal phobia, it is bees, actually. Like, bees freak me out. I mean, again, I think they're amazing. They're great for the planet. I don't like to be trapped in a space with a bee, or I don't like a bee on me.
No.
But so I remember seeing this movie for the first time when I was like a teenager, thinking, oh, this is going to be really scary. And there's a lot of movie in this.
They're really, well, that's when you see Irwin Allen's name. Know.
Right.
Like, this is going to be a marathon for sure. But I don't know. I do love it, and I've seen it more times than is probably physically healthy for a human.
Yeah. Think of all the things you could have been doing with those hours, Stacie, in your lifetime.
Honestly, because it really is hours, But it's good. It really gets into, like, there's also that weird kind of xenophobia, like racist tinge to it, where it's like, these are African bees, okay? These are bees from Africa. They are not American bees. American bees are amazing, but the African bees are terrible.
Yeah, that is weird, isn't it? Yeah. That is strange. Yeah.
But, I mean, killer bees were, like, for some reason, one of the fears of the 70s, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
Bermuda Triangle, quicksand, killer
quicksand.
bees.
Yes, exactly.
So I guess they wanted to, like, they didn't want people to go out and just, wantonly destroy bees, because we literally need bees to survive.
Oh my God.
So
yeah.
I guess that was the point they were trying to make with the, like, no, honeybees are cool, please don't kill the honeybees. But it comes off as, like, kind of racist in a way of just like...
Yeah, kill the African bees, kill them all.
Yeah, they literally call the American bees hardworking, like, okay...
Oh my God! Yeah, I just imagine these little bees with little red MAGA hats on them, just like yeah. Oh,
yeah, but it's great. I mean, should everybody suffer through the swarm once in their life? I think so.
Oh yeah, you've got to do it. You've got to do it once. And there are some amazing like the images of the people swarmed by the bees are they make my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Like they are powerful.
Like that. Yeah. I mean, and this is a movie that, like, it surprisingly will kill children. Like, there's that little kid covered in bees.
Yeah,
it'll kill old people. So I mean,
yeah.
There's a model train, like a train goes over a cliff, and it's clearly a very model train.
Yeah. So good. Oh, so good. There you go. The Swarm from 1978. What a movie. Hello everybody, we've reached the part of the episode where it's time to thank our next 30 Kickstarter backers for helping us create Final Cut, the official Evolution of Horror card game. Final Cut is now on sale on the Evolution of Horror website, and copies of the game are flying off the shelf. We have already sold a few hundred copies since it came on sale a couple of weeks ago, so if you want to get in there, please do it quick before we sell out. evolutionofhorror.com/shop. But now let me thank the next 30 Kickstarter backers who helped make Final Cut a possibility. A big thank you to Ashley, Tiro, Kaninen, Torma, Klakevsky, Josh Ix, Kristen, John Cole, Lunch Meter Phobia, Grace Kerr, Austin, Christopher Bundenson, Andreas, Simon O'Reilly, James Parker, Rebecca, Kev Thorne, Emma Franklin Wright, Debbie Nathan, Hayley Bridgman, Emily, Caro Alpi, Justin H, David Collett, Matt, Tony Feathers, Bradley Wolf, Mark Costello, Amanda N, Aaron Fraser, Aidan Broadbent, and Helena Murphy. A huge thank you to all of those people for helping to make Final Cut happen. And don't forget, if you want to pick up your copy of Final Cut, the official Evolution of Horror card game, before we sell out, then head over to evolutionofhorror.com/shop. That's evolutionofhorror.com/shop. Okay, Stacey, we're nearly at the end of our list of 70s movies. We're just going to wrap up with 3 more films, technically not from the 1970s, right, from the early 80s, but one of them you were really keen to have in. 2 of them were requested by lots of listeners, so I thought I would chuck them into the list. Let's begin by talking about a movie that so many people have asked me about. This is Q the Winged Serpent from 1982.
For 10 centuries it has waited to be awakened, to be worshipped again like a god, to fill the skies, to cast its shadow over the earth, to release its fury. Today in New York City, the Winged Serpent rises.
A Larry Cohen movie, of course, directed by Larry Cohen of The Stuff and It's Alive and other movies, starring David Carradine, Michael Moriarty, Richard Roundtree. NYPD detectives Shepard and Powell are working on a bizarre case of a ritualistic Aztec murder. Meanwhile, something big is attacking people in New York, and only a greedy, small-time crook, Jimmy Quinn, knows where its lair is. Oh, that's a long plot synopsis for a movie like this, but yeah. What did you? Have you seen this one, Stacey? What did you make of it?
I have seen this one. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's very New York.
It is, which is really actually like, we haven't spoken about many New York films so far on this list, have we? Yeah. New
York isn't the biggest place for horror, surprisingly. There certainly are New York-based horror movies, but it's not the immediate, maybe just because filming is such a pain in the ass. Like, low-budget filmmakers can't do it.
Yeah.
But to see a movie like this take place in New York is really cool, and you say, how in the world are they going to achieve that? And they say, well, it's through the power of claymation. That's how they're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it is great. Those moments of people being of people being, killed by the winged serpent and the swooping down. It's great. I love all of those moments.
Yeah, it happens repeatedly. Like, the movie kind of feels... There's like a whole B plot with Michael Moriarty's character. He's like a petty criminal.
Yeah.
He's really terrific in this. And then you've got the murders, and all of the murders are kind of set up like an episode of Law and Order. Like the beginning of Law and Order, where it's the 2 random people are walking down the street and they're talking about like, oh man, are you going to go to work tomorrow? I don't know, I've had the flu or whatever. And then, they find a dead body. Like, that kind of keeps happening throughout Q. But people get their heads bit off a lot in this movie, and I lived for it.
Oh, it's so good. Absolutely. It never gets old, right? That is so good.
No. Yeah, because somebody will be bathing, like sunbathing on a rooftop, and then you get like QI view.
Oh, it's so good.
And then every time it bites someone, it goes,
yeah,
like it makes that noise.
And there's always like
And it chomps it
a really, really long scream as it approaches by the victim as well, you know. Yeah. So good. The characters like the seedy, pervy window cleaner in the opening scene who gets his head bitten off as well. Like, it's just great. I loved it. Loved it. Really
a lot
fun.
of, like, Q grabs a body and just flings it and it goes flying, you know?
Yeah.
It's great stuff. It's really fun. It's a really fun movie.
I mean, Larry Cohen knows how to make a fun movie, doesn't he? I think, you know?
And you can tell, like, I think this is the one, it's not necessarily a comedy, but you can tell that everybody's kind of...
Yeah, they know what movie they're in.
They know what they're
making.
Exactly.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right. I think it's taking itself less seriously than The Swarm, for example, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Like, there's a scene where, I mean, Richard Roundtree, who was Shaft, right? He ends up getting, spoiler, like, he's flung to his death, and, like, we get the reaction shot of a mime.
Yeah.
Who's, like, watching silently and looks real sad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean...
Yeah.
It's not a completely serious movie.
Absolutely. But really fun. I think that's a favourite for a lot of people. It is a really fun movie. So that is Q, The Winged Serpent from 1982. Another Stacie favourite here, added to the list from 1982, Deadly Eyes.
They have been here since the dawn of time. They were on the battlefield with Alexander the Great. They were on the edge of Moscow with Napoleon. They're on every continent, in every city, and we do little to stop them. They're here now, waiting, watching. They've gone unchecked, unnoticed, and now they're monsters.
What's the matter?
Directed by Robert Klaus. A contaminated grain breeds overgrown killer rats. Simple as that, Stacie. Giant rats.
This is the one when you said, like, let's do 70s attack movies. I said 1982 counts as 70s, right? Because I don't think I could do this episode and not talk about Deadly Eyes.
I think it does. I mean, I think when you're talking about decades, I think we could go up to, like, 1983.
Yeah.
Right? I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Deadly Eyes. It's another one that kind of isn't talked about enough, in my opinion. Because, as I mentioned, I think at the top of the hour, the giant rats are played by dachshunds in rat costumes.
Oh, God, it's so cute.
It is the cutest thing you've ever seen in your entire life because they run like dachshunds. And I mean, there are a lot of them. And I could just watch a huge herd of dachshunds in rat costumes running down a tunnel.
Oh, God, it's so cute. It's adorable. Yeah. Yeah, I watched a clip of the little, like, again, quite brutal, like this little toddler sitting in the kitchen on a, like, high chair, and then she just gets swarmed by these giant rats, and her mum just finds her, like, mutilated body in the basement.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah, I know I said Kingdom of the Spiders goes hard. Deadly Eyes perhaps goes the hardest, because it's like, are you a baby? Mm-hmm. Are you an old... Are you Scatman Crothers? Are you the main star of the movie? It doesn't matter. You are going to die.
Yes.
You're going to be swarmed by dachshunds. And like these giant rats, they also make the cheetah noise, like the wildcat, like, wow, wow,
yeah.
Wow. Like, I don't know why they make that noise, but they do. And it's so much fun. Like, I could literally watch the rat dogs run forever. It is the cutest thing. It also stars, Leslie Donaldson is in this. She plays the best friend. She was in Curtains. She's the most famous death in Curtains.
Oh,
the ice skating.
The ice skating, yeah.
Ice skating, yep. Lisa Langlois, who was in Happy Birthday to Me and Class of 1984 is in this. So it's got some of the horror movie queens are in it.
Amazing.
It's gory. It's just, it's a perfect movie. I love Deadly Eyes so much. So if watching all these movies if it just gets somebody to watch Deadly Eyes for the first time.
I mean, it looks incredible. I love the little giant rat Dachshunds, very cute. Although I was really, really sad to read that apparently one of the Dachshunds died during the making of this film from overheating in the costume, which is so sad.
Sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear. I didn't hear what you said, Mike. Didn't catch any of that. Yeah, I love Deadly Eyes too. Yep.
Yeah. No, sorry. Nothing else to report. Nothing to report. It's fine.
Oh, that's awful.
I know. It's so sad. It's so horrible. But this is the problem with these types of movies, isn't it? It's horrible.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow, way to bring down the vibe.
I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, God. Well, I'm about to bring the mood down even more now with the last movie, because it's a bit more of a serious pick, this one. This is White Dog from 1982.
Now that dog has got to be stopped before he kills somebody. That dog is sick.
Then he should be cured.
Darling, the people that made him sick made him permanently sick.
Then they should be put to sleep, not the dog.
Oh, come on, Julie, you got a four-legged time bomb.
Directed by Samuel Fuller, starring Christy McNichol. A trainer attempts to refrain a vicious dog that's been raised to attack black people. So a racist dog, Stacie. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, watching it, I said, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this movie's about racism.
Yeah. You got the subtext there, did you? Yeah.
I got yeah, I got it. I will say that I do think this movie would be better served with perhaps its own episode or a more in-length discussion, perhaps with a black film critic.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
Would be better served. Because it is the outlier in this list, for sure. It's the only film on the list, which will surprise everybody to hear. It's the only film on the list in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
I'm say, really? No Kingdom of the Spiders? Okay.
Yeah, no Devil Dog the Hound of Hell in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
All right.
Not my Criterion Collection, but okay.
Yeah. No, you're right, and maybe I will find time to discuss it more in depth at some point, because it just wasn't really on my radar. But it's dealing with a lot of kind of there's some probably bigger, meatier stuff to dig into with this movie, I imagine.
Yeah. I don't know. It definitely, even just like vibe-wise, it doesn't... It's, like I said, it's the outlier with all of these. Because it is trying to treat this subject very seriously. Apparently it's mostly based on a true story.
Oof, yeah.
So, Christy McNichol, it's hard to overstate how popular Christy McNichol was at this point in time. She was a huge star. So she stars as an actress who she hits a dog, solid white German Shepherd. She ends up taking it home and keeping it as a guard dog, this sort of thing, and it starts attacking black people. And so it becomes, is it a question of it's just an attack dog, or is it specifically targeting black people?
Yeah.
And so she brings it to a trainer to kind of try to have it deprogrammed, essentially. And Paul Winfield plays the trainer who is going to try to deprogram this dog.
Yeah, like you say, it kind of plays it a little bit more straight, obviously, this movie, than the others, right? But it still has that kind of it does still have that, I mean, the dog is scary as well. Like, it does have that kind of sinister edge.
Oh, for sure. There's some really tense moments in this movie where he's training the dog, and it's like, where he, for the first time, will like try to approach the dog without the protective gear or whatever. Because, sometimes dogs.
Right.
Or even cats. Like, they're domesticated, but you never know.
Oh, God, absolutely. Yeah, you never know. Yeah, you don't want to mess with them, right? Yeah.
So it really, it's a little on the nose, I think, the racial commentary, perhaps until the ending.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like, maybe at some point we'll find a way to discuss it slightly in more depth with, somebody who's more equipped to kind of talk about it than maybe me and you are.
Right,
But yeah, I'm glad that people brought it to my attention, because it does stand apart from most of your typical animal attack movies from this era. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's more about the racial politics, that kind of thing, where it's not as much fun.
No.
I'll say, as watching Ida Lupino battle a giant maggot as watching like a black guy going about his business and getting attacked by a dog.
Right.
Like, that's kind of the difference. It's like the difference between these animal attack movies and, like we said, a slasher movie. Like, it's, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, there's a big, broad list of masterpieces there, Stacie. Incredible.
All masterpieces. 100%.
Now you've kind of teased this a couple of times, but what would your top 3 be from that list?
Frogs, for sure.
Yeah,
love frogs. I don't know. I mean, Day of the Animals, and then Kingdom of the Spiders / Ants / Deadly Eyes / The Swarm. That's 3. That's 3.
That's 3. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, Stacie, I've loved this. I love your absolute enthusiasm for this era of these particular type of animal attack movies, and I've no doubt everybody is going to go out and check some of these movies out.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, they are just so much fun, aren't they?
They really are.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I'm never rooting for mankind in these movies. You know, even when it's Tiffany Bowling, even when it's Ida Lupino or Olivia de Havilland, I'm still saying, like, go get her, bees. You know?
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Well, Stacie, thank you. What a joy. What a fun way to spend a couple of hours talking about these movies with you. I've loved it. Just remind people, where else, if they want to find more Stacie Ponder, where can they find Stacie Ponder?
Well, you can also hear me on, like you mentioned, the podcast, The Detective and the Log Lady.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, right?
Yeah. That is right. Yeah.
Yeah, the Twin Peaks podcast. Otherwise, FinalGirl.rocks or Rue Morgue Magazine. Those are my biggest haunts. Otherwise, I'll be running with the dachshunds.
Exactly. Perfect. And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. And one more time, a huge thank you to my brilliant guest, Stacie Ponder. It is always the highlight of my week getting to chat to Stacie. So what a pleasure to have her back on the podcast. So let me know what you thought of this week's episode and what you thought of the films covered. Are there any big 70s animal attack movies we missed out? Yes, I know there is definitely one, and it's Orca. And you've all already written to me about how Orca isn't and should be on that list. But if there are any other movies missing that you want to give a little shout out to, then please do get in touch. You can email me, evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can also find us on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you want to discuss this week's episode and the fact that we missed out Orca from our list with fellow listeners, join the Evolution of Horror discussion group, or you can join the Evolution of Horror Discord. And over on our Discord, listeners of the podcast do weekly watch-alongs where they watch some of the movies that are being covered this series. So they probably won't be watching Orca because it wasn't on the list. You can find this podcast in all the usual podcast places, and if you get a spare moment, I'd be so grateful if you could drop us a little rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whichever app you use, as that really helps us get discovered by new listeners. So, on to next week then, and we are still creeping our way through the 70s and early 80s. There are a couple of interesting movies that we didn't mention this week that are going to get longer discussions. And next week, it's a kind of Tobe Hooper double bill. Stevie Webb is going to be joining me to discuss Tobe Hooper's absolutely deranged killer crocodile movie Eaten Alive from 1976. And then we are also going to be talking about a killer snake movie that Tobe Hooper was originally directing before he walked off the project and was replaced by Piers Haggard, and that is Venom from 1981. It's going to be a very fun discussion. Join us next week for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.